Hello, everyone. I see you're coming in. I'll give you a few minutes before we get started. And yeah, we're getting more and more. 17. It is 1 o'clock where I am standing, and I will introduce myself in just a second. Okay. All right. I would say let's get started to make it the most of our hour together today. And my name is Dr. Marion Russell, and I'm here to talk to you about ARFID and picky eating and how can NoTube help you at your table. So, but first of all, before I get all into the details, let's get comfortable. No matter where you are, if you are at home, if you are in your office, I know we have some therapists joining us. If you are sitting on your couch, please get something to drink, get something to eat, because we are going to use food. We talk about food today. Of course, we're going to have food as part of our hour together. I'm going to get myself some coffee because, you know, a lot of our talk today, actually thinking and the starting process happens in the kitchen. So I'm welcoming you today from my kitchen. And before I get started, a few kind of housekeeping. So we have a Q&A on the bottom of your screen, and my colleague Ava will be there answering your questions or guiding you in the right direction. And then we have also the chat function, which we'll be using when we're going to have a conversation, have a little activity prepared. And also, if you, for example, have something that you want to bring up during the activity, that's what you use the chat function for. All questions will go in the Q&A. We have over 100 registered participants today, so I probably won't get to all of them, all of those questions, but I grouped them together, so hopefully you will get your question answered. And if not, the webinar is not the only place to get your answers. You can always email, right? help@notube.com. You can book a free evaluation on our website at notube.com. But you know what? What is NoTube? Some of you might already know or have found us and are familiar with who we are. So let's give you a little introduction. So first of all, I'm Dr. Marion Russell. I'm an occupational therapist working with the team. So of course, no webinar can start with me acknowledging all the people behind the screen that make NoTube NoTube. So NoTube really breathes, lives, team. So we are an interdisciplinary team. We consist of physiotherapists, of physical therapists, if you're in the US, occupational therapists, pediatricians, psychologists. We have family educators. So lots and lots of different people, different professions, lots of a wealth of experience that comes to your table. So that's why we're here today, to talk to you about what we are and how we can help you. And hopefully you can take some of that with you. So we'll start off with a little activity. So if you are able to write into your chat, I would like for you to put down words that come to mind when you hear the word mealtime. So first association, any word that is that is in your mind at the forefront. And I will read out some of them. And if you can't find your chat function, or you are driving and listening, or you're watching this at another time, take the moment to think about what comes to mind when you think of mealtime. And while you are doing this, I will just take a quick little sip of water. Okay. All right, I see. Nobody has written anything yet, so I can talk to you kind of from the experience up that we have here at NoTube. So please use the chat for talking about mealtime. So often we have anxiety, nervous, and then you have, oh, unsure. I don't know what to offer. Oh, and I see, they're coming. Oh, the chat is disabled. I can see. All right, and put it in the Q&A. We're gonna just, move over to the Q&A if the chat's not working. That works well too. So then put it in the chat. Dread. Yes, definitely. So they feel this dread, the anxiety, the nervousness of what is going to come. And just think about this. Is that helpful, right? Is that something that makes you hungry or want to eat? Just be aware that this is with you when you enter a meal situation. So kind of you take that in your backpack or whatever, in your pocket. You have it with you in your mealtime situation. So we're talking today about ARFID and picky eating. There's a lot of confusion. What is ARFID? What is picky eating? And I am not necessarily giving you kind of the diagnostic criteria. This is not really my place here. But I want to tell you a little bit about how we at NoTube address ARFID and picky eating and some of the base understanding. So here, for example, at NoTube, we have different programs. We have an eating school program, which means is that we offer services really on campus in Graz, Austria. You can really meet everybody there. It's an intensive program for 2 weeks. We also have what's called net coaching, and that is for our clients who have a feeding tube that is done telemedicine only. And then we have the Learn to Eat program that is designed for our picky eaters, selective eaters. It's an online program, but we always recommend that you do a free evaluation, because sometimes even if you're to say just a picky eater, you will really benefit from an on-site program and the hands-on support from our therapists. So what is the basic premise of how we address ARFID and picky eating? Child autonomy. So if you expect that we'll give you checklists and programs and all those things, I have to disappoint. We are really geared towards your child and your family's need. Every caregiver, every family, every child has different needs, very individual. So it's child-led. We are entering a partnership with you and your child, and our therapist, the team that works with you. And we really want to foster children's autonomy, the child's autonomy. So that's the philosophy that we here at NoTube embrace. So ARFID and picky eating, let's get back to that. Just if you think about it, there's some similarities. They also share some really important differences. So when families come to NoTube, they've often tried many, many different things. There is frustration, there's fear, we don't know what we're going to do, and they find us. So here in the US, this is where I am located right now, we have a diagnosis called pediatric feeding disorder since October 2021, and Feeding Matters has been instrumental in that diagnostic category, and really trying to help kind of get a better sense of an idea of what that really is. Because if you understand your child's feeding difficulties, it will help with the approach that you can take to address it. So not every child who's a picky eater necessarily has an eating and feeding disorder, right? Some picky eating is a typical development. It's part of, and there will, what we say, like they will add different things at a time and they will move on. But we need to really think about and have a good idea of how to address those kids who really struggle. And that really impacts everybody around the table. Feeding, eating is incredibly complex. It's a single swallow. So what we'll hear, 26 muscles and 6 cranial nerves. They have to work in harmony. If the harmony is disrupted for whatever at that psychosocial piece, and you can have some PFD specific multi-diagnosis symptoms even if you have ARFID. So they're kind of connected and they're different. So if your child, and a lot of questions were like, oh, my child possibly has ARFID, may have ARFID, we would encourage you to look into that, because what you're telling us with those questions is that the eating and feeding is not working. The eating of your kid is not working for you. So let's take a better look. And even if your kid has an ARFID diagnosis, we recommend that you look at the other components too, other medical underlying reasons. Are there any other oral motor deficiencies that you might want to address? So don't leave that out just because you have that. Many different reasons why a kid doesn't eat, right? So the medical, I just mentioned that, could be reflux, constipation. Just think about like really full, that doesn't feel good. We don't want to put more into it. The sensory pieces, we're going to talk about that today. We have a little activity coming up, so stay tuned. Make sure you have your food next to you. And then we have the oral motor, right? So the lip movement, the jaw strength, the coordination. We at NoTube, we don't work with oral motor protocols in terms of massage here, do that. We'll show you kind of how to support your child, but we very much, again, as said, is a child-led approach. So we want your kid to be in charge what happens to their mouth and their oral area. So this is your kid's space, and we have to wait for the kid to allow you to come into that space. And how we're going to do that, we'll talk about this a little bit today as well. Sometimes too, routine can be good and it can be a hindrance, right? So a barrier, because sometimes there was a single episode of not eating, a single episode of something was going on, and then parents tell us, well, it took on their own dynamic. We entered kind of a cycle and we had no idea how to get out of that. So an important piece, and then there is the fear, right? So some children have the fear of past choking. They might have a really fear of an oral aversion. So we'll address some of that in our webinar today and how we can do that. So big question we got: how does NoTube make your child eat? If you had paid attention already to the, how long have we been talking? 13 minutes. You can probably answer that question right now. Yes, we don't make your child eat. We can't, right? They have the right, the autonomy to do this. There's nothing you can do. So we support your child and we support you. We very much believe that the caregiver unit is an important piece of eating. It's an important piece that we also pull you into our treatment and say, like, you are here, thank you. We want to support you too, but more to that. So big question was how to expand food, looking at picky eating, looking at children with ARFID, extreme selective eaters, all those children, lots and lots of questions around how to expand the food. First of all, if you think about children, what is their innate ability or their innate kind of drive? They're curious. They want to play. So let's bring that in. Let's bring that to the table, right? Have you as a parent step back and give your child space. So interest in new foods. I got lots of questions on how we encourage, how can I make my child love food? Eat yourself, reduce the pressure, and bring in the curiosity and the play. Because very often, and if I say stage example, I'll give you that later, is that idea of that we have high expectations and we need to bring it down a notch. What we do here at NoTube, we use something that's called play picnics, a therapeutic intervention. Even our telehealth families at home get that recommendation. And maybe you've tried it already. So we are pulling you away from the table and placing you on the floor. You meaning you are part of it, right? Putting you on the floor with your kid, 3 to 4 different kinds of food. And the expectation is no eating. We don't worry about it. We are exploring, we are playing, we're curious, right? So we're eating with our fingers, we're exploring. You as a caregiver, when was the last time you had a puree with your finger? Yeah, I don't know. So that's all part of this, right? So we're bringing that in and giving the child the room, the space to kind of explore and see what the food is like. You can put some down that child already likes to eat, have a familiar item, absolutely. But then you take care of yourself. Let the child go and invite neighbors, friends, if that's possible. Bring them, and you will see kids, even kids without any feeding and eating issues, love to have a playful interaction with food. Another question was how we will expand drinks. They're very limited in drinking, and similar process, gradual, right? Think of what a kid already likes. You can add drops of just a different flavor. Think outside the box. Don't think about fruit juices necessarily, but maybe your kid likes savory purees. What speaks against having soup to drink, right? So use that savory flavor that your kid enjoys. Some can add carbonation, for example. Really important is do not surprise your child. Children with eating and feeding behavior difficulties do not like surprises. So keep that in mind. That is an important piece. So no surprises. If they have a safe drink, that's theirs to have, and you're going to mess with that, right? That stays theirs. But you can see, like, here's a different cup and we put something else in it. And sometimes it can be quite hard because it smells different, and we think about the taste, the senses. So maybe you just have a straw, and often it's really nice to have just a cover so the smell of the drink doesn't come out. That can be overwhelming for some children. I know that's not a very pretty example, but we're always a big proponent of using what the families already have in their homes. So just have some cling wrap on top, putting a straw in. Doesn't have to be a metal straw. That's the only thing I had. And then you can add the liquid in there, for example. And the child can still see what's in it, right? Again, no surprises. So next question, how many types of foods can I offer? How to offer food to a child when they refuse it. So how many types of food can I offer? There's the word offer in there, and maybe you wanted to say like provide, but offer for me, and I think my colleagues will agree with that, has an active part of the caregiver of here, try, do this. So I say, no, you can provide, you can put out, but let's not offer. Step back a little, don't overwhelm, right? So if you do have no food that you want to introduce to your child's diet for whatever reason, it has to become kind of part of a staple. You can't expect have something new and it works right away. So children under the age of 8, for example, have to try new food 20 times to really figure out whether it tastes good or they don't really like it. And once they're older, it only 10 times, but they can make that decision. So if they do this the first time, it doesn't mean they're never going to eat it. So we might as well, have it there again and maybe another time. Child has to meet the food with all their senses, right? Meet the food. The play picnic, what I mentioned earlier, is a great opportunity to have your child meet all the food with all their senses. And then, big rule, no begging, no pushing, no bargaining. And we'll talk about this in a little bit later, because a lot of parents and caregivers that we work with are in that cycle of offering, pushing, pressuring, bargaining, realizing it doesn't work, but I don't know what else to do. So we'll get to that as well. Just think about it a little bit like a dance, right? So if you come forward too far, I'm getting in the camera really, really big. What is your response? Ooh, that is too close. We're going back, right? So it has to be kind of at the right rhythm. And we understand that you come to this with a lot of things already on your mind, right? What I asked you earlier, a lot of dread is already in there. So we are aware of this. We are acknowledging that this is not gonna, that it's gonna come easy to you or just like that, right? So it will take time and practice. A lot of questions we received too was around the area of oral aversion. Questions, for example, how do we get past sensory barriers? For example, textures and smells, what I showed you earlier with the cup and the covering the smells, that's one. And that's something we address in all our programs, no matter where you find yourself in our program, if it's snack coaching, learn to eat, or in the eating school. Senses are very, very important. Children learn a lot through their senses, and we do too, right, as adults. If it's a really severe oral aversion, we would recommend occupational therapists can help, not just because I am one, but also, you have physical therapists who are trained in sensory integration. Those are great resources for you to tap into as well. And again, we here at NoTube use that approach, and we're trained in that. So when there is an oral aversion, we got to have a little bit of an understanding of what senses are we talking about and how they relate to food. So now you might as well take the food out that you have prepared there for you. Don't eat all of it because you have another exercise later. Okay, so just take a bite. And here I am asking you to take a bite after I told people don't do that. So if you would like, you can take a bite, or you can just look at the food that you have there. So we have the visual sense looking at it. So how is the food offered? How does that look like in terms of how much is on the plate? And then we have the taste, of course, all the taste buds, everything that goes into that. And then we have the smell. So we build strong associations with smell, right? It's a straight shot to the brain. Memory is connected. So a smell, like even a child throws up a lot, lots of vomiting, and from formula or milk or whatever it may be, the smell of milk or a kind of shake or milk-based drink might just be an absolute no-go. So by that, it just triggers a very strong memory of that experience. And then we have the auditory. We forget sometimes how loud food can be. So next time you eat a pretzel, pay attention, or an apple. Apples are loud. We have proprioception. So if I'll ask you to kind of, when you take a bite, where is the food in the mouth, you probably will be able to tell me, oh, there's something stuck here, there's some food over here. But a lot of kids don't know where the food is in their mouth or where their body is in space. That's what we call proprioception. Sitting position, big piece. If I ask you to eat a 3-course meal while standing on one leg, which I'm doing right now, you will at some point do this, and you're going to have to work really hard. And this becomes a lot more difficult. So think about too, like, where are your kids sitting? One of the senses that we don't pay much attention to, but kids with ARFID and also pediatric feeding disorders, is interoception. So how do I sense the inside? How do I sense hunger? How do I sense satiation, right? This feeling of being full and it feels good. That's a little bit not quite working for a lot of our kids with their feeding difficulties, and the internal signals of fullness and emptiness or hunger needs to be kind of taken into account. So thinking about that, you can add different textures to like slippery foods like breadcrumbs or crumbs to like pasta, for example. You can change the temperature. That sometimes can help too, cold or warm. Tactile exploration, again, no pressure. The outside of the mouth, like cooking, messy play, and give the child control. And by having your kid meet the food, like through the hands, for example, creates safety in terms of they can anticipate what's coming. And that is really, really important when we talk about aversion of any kind, right? They can anticipate what's coming. So a lot of groups of questions. And again, if you're like, oh, something is like, oh yeah, maybe, I don't know if that's my kid, feel free to book a free evaluation. I haven't mentioned that yet, and really important piece. And my colleague Eva just put it in the chat that you can book an evaluation and you can chat with us to get more information, detail how this applies to your kid and how we might be able to help, right? So parental control. A lot of questions came around the idea of how much control, how do I do it? And so one question from a parent or caregiver was, I'm getting frustrated that my child keeps saying that they don't like something without trying. So let's pick it apart. So not to pick on you, but it's really the idea is like you are getting frustrated. Thank you for acknowledging this. Very important piece. Acknowledge your feelings because those are in the interaction with you. Okay. Acknowledge your feelings. Frustrated that my child keeps saying. So the next question is, are you asking your kid whether they want to try something, eat something, do something? Stop. Okay. Let's do something different. Let's not ask anymore. Okay. So allow yourself to take a break, step back. And sometimes too, they say like, I don't like this. And okay, as a caregiver, you might want to give your child a language. You can say like for yourself, it's like, oh, yeah, it looks a little too brown. I'm just making this. It looks a little, maybe there's just a lot on your plate. Have them by expressing, by having this conversation, for example, too, can give the kid language and you can figure out with the help of a therapist to figure out, okay, what is it? Maybe the ask was too big. Maybe there was too much on that plate. Maybe there was too much that you asked them to try and that it was just too overwhelming. One good way of practice trying would be a play picnic. When they're older kids, we love to use our beautiful ice cube trays. Ooh, I've already filled them here with things we like to use too, very much those little puffs that dissolve in the mouth. But again, it's predictable. And then you know what? Invite somebody over. Don't single the kid out. Have somebody else there too. And that's what we do, for example, at our Eat Campus in Graz. We sit down, we all explore. Be curious yourself. And I love the quote from Ellen Setter, and she said, feeding is a relationship that depends on the abilities and characteristics of both the person feeding and the child being fed. Again, it goes back and forth, right? So I encourage you, make a list of all the foods that you didn't like as a child. Okay? And what did you not like about them? So I would encourage you to be curious of certain things that maybe you actually don't like either. And what is it, right? What is it? So another question we got in terms of rules. So how many rules can I make? Well, I don't like the word rules. And we at NoTube don't like rules either because, we're child-led. But it is okay to have some rules, right? So if your child throws food repeatedly at you, you can say, I don't like that. Fine, absolutely. And then there were questions around the timing. Like some rules are really okay because they provide some safety. So, and the question was like, how much freedom can I give? So can I, for example, is it best to let your child only have one bite by themselves or use distraction to get them to eat more? Is it better to eat, have them eat outside of the meal time, even when he does not eat afterwards? So eating outside of the meal time. So first of all, Is there something that you can create or take from the outside mealtime times that you can build into your mealtime? So what I can tell you is, for example, this individual was saying, well, I cook and the child likes to eat when I cook, or I'm doing something else in the kitchen. Is that okay? And I said, so what do you do when you cook? You're busy. Yes, you don't pay attention. You don't count what the child is eating. And that creates a very different atmosphere. So let's bring that to your table, right? So don't pay attention to what your child eats. I know when I'm presenting it like this, it sounds like, yeah, but come to my table. This is not our reality. I understand. We do hear you're not alone. We had over 100 participants signing up. So I'm just saying, when you watch this later, be aware that we are listening. We are listening. We really want to understand your reality. So that's why we have different approaches for you to get in touch with us to figure out how we can help. So big piece around is like, so mealtime, maybe there's some jobs the kid can do, like mix the last food together at the table and then you start eating. Or they can, family style meal, big piece. Distraction. We get a lot of question, and this one was too, about distraction. So we eat in front of the TV, right? We do. We do. We eat in the movie theater. We get popcorn or nachos, no matter what you prefer, right? So we don't want to depend on distraction, but some distraction really can take out the pressure of an eating situation or a feeding situation. So you ask yourself, what is your end goal? What do you want to achieve? We don't want to, of course, have a kid who only eats with iPad, right? But you might have to use it at the beginning just to get over the hump, just to get them started curious, interested. That might be a technique that works. Again, we are individually tailored program. We will have to figure that out with you, what will work for your child. And then we talk about ARFID and picky eating and extreme, and in those regards, lots of anxiety. So I hear food anxiety, lots of questions around anxiety response at the table. How does NoTube deal with that? What do we do? Well, we take a look at your expectations. For example, you might, again, talked earlier, the big ask, right? It might be too much. And some kids don't like to eat in the morning. Right? In German, we have a beautiful word for that, and this is your German vocabulary of the day, Morgenmuffel. Have fun repeating that. It just means like you're just not yourself in the morning. But a lot of kids and adults, their metabolism needs time. They'll eat later. So think about too how you're timing your expectations. And if you have fear, if you have anxiety, your appetite goes down. So I'm inviting you to a little exercise. So when you watch this later too, please go with me. I want you to, if you're comfortable, just close your eyes for a minute and imagine that you're standing on a stage. The light is dark right now, and somebody turns on the light, and the light is just on you. You don't know what the prompt is. You don't know what to say or what to expect, but you do know that people are watching. So, and now I'm asking you to eat. Are you hungry? And this is a little bit the experience that our kids have with eating and feeding difficulties. They eat on a stage. And when you're stressed, it activates the fight or flight response. Your body shuts everything down that is not necessary, including the appetite. Because if you're in a fight or flight response, you don't have time to eat or think about it. You actually have less saliva in your mouth, so chewing is a lot harder. And you can taste food as well. So think about that, right? So try to put yourself in your child's shoes by, for example, eat with your eyes closed. Have somebody else feed you something without you knowing what it is. I suspect that some of you will already at that point say, "Oh, I don't think so. Thank you very much. No, thank you." But that's the expectation we have of our kids. They have this fear and just like, no. So, but for therapists too, put yourself in the shoes of your caregivers, of the families that you work with, that's what that's what their reality is at home. And sometimes we come with well intentions, and but the reality is really a different one. We are also taking into account the siblings, the other people who are part of this, right? So NoTube really focuses on everybody and how they can also have a pleasurable mealtime experience. Really important. So, and yes, people always want to offer help, right? You as caregivers, it's like you get so many advice, and it's okay to say, well, thank you. But I just need someone to listen. So the advice that we often give in our treatment with our caregivers too, and again, I said we have a pediatrician on the team, we have a psychologist on the team, but also a feeding therapist, which are occupational therapists and a physiotherapists. We are all on the same page here, is that you need to listen to yourself and you need to take a break. Because that's a lot of a caregiver, right? So again, we don't want you to become dependent on checklists or certain protocols of what you have to do at the table. No, what we want is you want to trust yourself. We want you to trust your child and trust the process. Okay, so that's really important. We want you to develop a sense of effectiveness and of confidence when you enter the mealtime experience. So what are some ways you can do that? Again, by curiosity, right? I talked about this earlier. So you can take on the role of a scientist together with your child and explore the food that is around you. And you can start it with early ages, and it actually helps you to understand what kind of food are you offering, because we forget sometimes that the food might be just really too much to ask. So let's think about this. So food scientists, so take your food that you have next to you, and bring it closer to you that we can engage with it together. So the food scientist looks at first at the resistance. So think about it, take a bite and say, like, wow, do I have to bite down a lot or just a little? What's happening? How big is it? What is the size, right? Is it small? Is it big? What's on the plate? Texture scatter. What's happening in the mouth? Is it all over the place? Is it stuck in your teeth, which can be quite frustrating, right? Stuck in your teeth. What's happening here? And then how long transfer? How long does it take for your tongue to go left and right to clear this out, to figure out where is the food, to figure out what's next? And then there's the senses, right? Let's review. Look, like, taste, smell. What is the experience like for you? And then the shape. How big do you have to kind of, why do you have to open your mouth? So here's an apple. So if an apple is like, right, it's a lot. It opens it all. Anything that is around requires to open the mouth. Opening the mouth and creates vulnerability. Think about it, right? Well, when we're not so sure, we take little tiny bites, little tiny mice bites like this. Okay? Yeah, little tiny bites. It's okay, right? So let's offer, maybe think about it too. Let's offer food that is long, stick-like. They can take a bite. It's a lot easier. It doesn't have to be a string cheese, but that's what I had. You can cut also the apple in different sections. But again, what happens with the consistency? That is our last point. An apple has 3 different consistencies. We have the peel, we have all the fruit stuff in the middle, that squishy stuff, and we have the juice. So you have to coordinate all of this at the same time. A piece of apple is quite challenging. So let's appreciate that here for a minute, right? So small portions, and be interested. What are the properties? If you think of kind of changing of kind of what you already offer, you can do a thing that's called food chaining, where you look at the properties that we just talked about and feel free to watch it again and take a little note. So, and then change one of the properties, not all of them, right? So for example, if there are already eating, let's say, one type of let's say one type of cracker, okay? Cracker, people love crackers. I have a lot of cracker eaters. You know, you might want to think of a different shape of a cracker, or you want to think of a different package. You want to maybe think of a different flavor. If it's, for example, if it's plain, you can maybe try cheese. And so kind of thinking about changing one of those properties. If you change too much, what will happen? Remember, overwhelm, anxiety, fight or flight. I got to get out of here. I need to go. So, and then there's no eating happening. So then there's just more stress. So be curious yourself. And again, don't tamper with safe foods. Really important is that the child needs to be in charge. That is a definitely very, very important piece. Okay. So how does treatment approach differ between ARFID and picky eating? That is one of the questions we got quite a bit. I can tell you right now, there's not really a difference because we are looking at your current situation, right? So what is happening around your table and how we can kind of capitalize on your resources that you have, and then we'll tailor it individually. So what are the moving parts? Sometimes it can just be that, oh, the way you are sitting, it really puts the kid, for example, at the head of the table. Yeah, the head of the table. And then everybody else is around it and kind of, where's everybody looking while they're eating, right? That direction. And the question is also, why is the kid not eating, right? So we also as a team are also kind of looking from all different perspectives. Are there any medical issues that we might still want to look into, right? So that's why we have the pediatrician who has a look at that as well. And do maybe you as a caregiver unit need some outside support? When was the last time you went out and did something nice for yourself? Okay, when was the last time you cooked a meal and you didn't worry about whether the kid eats it or not? Those are very important pieces. And in the net coaching program, where we communicate with you through a portal that we call ticket system. Sounds a little funny, but that's what it is. And also the Learn to Eat program, same system, right? We use video analysis. So in the Learn to Eat program, you have actually a Zoom session with a feeding therapist, and which is Eva, who's also right now in the Q&A. And so if you have any questions for her specifically, feel free, but help@notube.com. We're always there, right? And so what we use is a video analysis. We will ask you to look for a video and to make a video. And I would challenge you when you're watching now as a therapist, as a caregiver of a child with an eating and feeding disorder, put your cell phone somewhere in the room and just film a snippet of your meal. And you might feel awkward at the moment, but again, we did the stage example, right? Your kid always feels awkward and has some kind of stress when it comes around food. So it's okay for you to feel that too. But it gives you a different perspective. It gives you the perspective of how many times, and count, how many times in during the meal did you offer? How many times did you look at your kid? Did you comment on the food? Okay. How close are you sitting? What does the child do? Did they actually engage in something and then stopped? Was there some hesitation? All of this, and describe it. So it's a really, really great tool for you at home to try it out, and see what's happening around your table. Because the reality is you've been doing this probably for a while. So that you are so into into this that it's hard for you to take an outside perspective. So feel free to do that, to take that step and get the outside perspective. And a lot of times too, when we're talking about picky eating, and we get questions, and there were some of you that had the same questions of, my child does not swallow, always just spits it out and spits it out at the table. So that's some of the behaviors that you see. And I just want to mention that here, since we're talking about video analysis and looking at the table. So look at the food that you offer. Is it too much and too hard to do? But also, by spitting it out, the child actually learns a lot about the food. So it's not necessarily a bad thing or something that's like, oh, don't do that. But it's kind of like they're collecting it, so they don't know what to do with it. And then the only thing that they can do is get it out because they're too afraid to swallow. So when it's already in the mouth, so kind of look at what is it that you offer. The kid may not have confidence in the swallowing. So smaller meals, smaller bite sizes, small steps, the ask is smaller, and the success can come in a little bit earlier. So if you look at a lot of it on your plate, that is that can be tricky. So when a child has a lot of that happening, kind of take a step back, and maybe even making a little video can help you in that regard as well. And for older, and I forgot to mention that earlier, expanding a food list that we sometimes forget and that you can introduce to your table are condiments. Yeah, condiments in terms of ketchup, ranch dressing, dipping sauces, Parmesan, all of these things, because it gives the child the control to add a different flavor. So, just a little bit, tiny bit, you can try that again, and you model. If you enjoy it, it really brings satisfaction to you and less focus on your kid. Okay, so think about that too. Are you offering condiments? Do you have condiments in your home? So that might be a good avenue to explore too when you think about introducing new foods to your table. And don't forget, it has to be more than once. So let's talk about what we see at NoTube at the table. And so I talked about already about the worrying cycle, and that creates pressure, right? But sometimes what we see too is, and that's how we step in and offer our help, is praise. Yay! I'm so proud of you for eating. I know you're excited. You'll do some clapping, your little cheer, or maybe a little dance, right? Hold it back. Be happy inside. I'm not going to tell you can't be happy, but that cheering, that positive, that praise can also create pressure. So we don't want that, right? We want to decrease the pressure because we don't want children to learn to eat for the wrong reasons, for external motivation, right? We want them to have the internal motivation because they're hungry, because it feels good. That is why I want to eat. So think about that when you want to have a little applause and a little happy dance. So you can certainly do it, but again, inside, okay? Another thing that we see sometimes is the question around, well, I made you this, so please eat it. Oh, please. That kind of just have one bite and 3 bites and then it's dessert. And so we really don't want to get into that bargaining and into that offering, because that can create a battle. Right? It creates a battle, and the battle would be about the battle and not about the food. So pick your battles, right? Yes, when it's snowing outside, you need to wear a jacket. Okay? That is the battle, good battle to have, good battle to keep, or clean up your room, whatever the battle is you want to choose. Let's not make it about food. Again, it creates stress. What happens with stress? The appetite goes down. So let's move that away. So we really want to encourage you to let kids eat without comments, to let them eat not alone, like by themselves somewhere in the room. That's not what we're saying, but sometimes they want to maybe start a little bit early before you get to the table. Have it there already, and they might like sneak a little bite and do a little trying because again, because they won't be on the stage. And that's similar what we had earlier, the comment from the caregiver that talked about this. So eat yourself. Mealtime jobs talked about that. Make mealtime about eating together, not eating, but having a time together and not about eating, right? And don't label your child as a picky eater. I think that's what we hear a lot too. Is like, your child has some difficulties with eating and feeding, so let's look at that. And what we also see is the reiteration of, oh, you don't like that, or you don't like blueberries, so you won't like strawberries either. So, oh, you won't like that. So let's not recount or reiterate what the child doesn't like. Again, let them have that choice. You can talk about what you don't like, totally fine, but focus on what the child does like, right? Think about that type of language too. So having that conversation. And mealtime really, we hope that we as the team here can support you in making this a more pleasurable experience. And as a caregiver unit, sometimes you have to say, you know what? The table isn't working for us right now. The table is there's so much happen at the table. Let's just eat somewhere else, you know? And you might want to eat on the floor. You might want to eat on the balcony, on the garden, no matter what you have access to, eat on the floor. Just do something different to break out of that cycle of pressure, of frustration, of dread, that we've talked earlier, and bring back the joy. If you have questions, help at NoTube.com. We are here and doing a free evaluation. We can talk and give some more detailed responses and guidance. So I talked a lot already, so we have a few minutes left. I'm going to just take a quick here we go, a bit of water. And I want to kind of summarize with some few key takeaways for you to remember as you continue on in your day, as you might, if you are here in my time zone, it is now almost 2:00. Dinner will come at some point. If you're in Europe, you probably already ate. It's past 8, I don't know, but breakfast will come. So as you prepare for the next day, as you think about your next mealtime, here are some few things to keep in mind. Number one is reduce the pressure on yourself. Okay, so no fight, no begging, no bargaining. Take a break, ask for help. It is absolutely okay, right? When you always offer, the kid can't come by themselves, right? To ask for something. So step back, reduce the pressure. Remember the senses, really important. Eating is complex. It takes time, it takes practice. So consider all the senses, how they play a role around your table. Look at it too. It's like, wow, is there a TV over here? Is it really, really busy? Take a look. Dare to change something. Dare to change something. Change how you eat, where you eat, and what you eat, right? For yourself too. So make the change yourself. Eat something that you have never tried before. Try to find the way back to food for yourself. And you will see that will have an impact of how you approach mealtime with your child. And then ask for help. Reduce the shame. Do not wait. We are here to help you. We are here to support you in your journey together with your children. you have a team of experts with a wealth of experiences. So we are honored when caregivers invite us into their home, when they open their doors and say, we need help. What can we do? Let's figure this out together. It is important that you are not isolating yourself, that you're not, be the only one dealing with this. So please, please, please reach out. We also have Facebook groups. You can see us there as well. You can connect with other parents. We have, I think, a Facebook group for French-speaking families, English-speaking families, German-speaking families. So as you see, we have an international array of families. So you can make a connection and speak to other families who have experiences with NoTube, but also just with eating and feeding behavior difficulties. So it is really important that you don't isolate yourself and you ask for help. By watching this, either live right now or by later, you are making a first step. You are making another step maybe in your journey by finding what are the ways that you can support your kid. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for listening to me for a whole hour. And also, again, we are a team here at NoTube. So feel free to book a free evaluation on our website to get more information and specific questions answered for your children, and also help at notube.com. And I would say have a phenomenal rest of your day, and maybe you spend some time reflecting of what are some key takeaway messages for you that you took with you today. Maybe you will make that list of foods that you didn't like as a child, or maybe you will have a piece of food and think about, what's happening to this in my mouth? It's kind of stuck everywhere, right? That's too much. So maybe that's what you do, or maybe you just have a cup of tea by yourself and take a deep breath and simply say thank you for being that person that reached out, that is here, that is listening, and that is a very, very important piece. So have a wonderful day, and until next time, bon appetit, guten Appetit. Das war's. That's all for me today. Have a good night. Bye-bye.